So in terms of kind of different leagues and stuff and how they rank, so I'm going to reference a tweet from one of your colleagues, so Omar. So one of his tweets was, and again linking back to the Euros, that Serbia ranked equivalent to a mid Premier League side. So again, if we can just speak a little bit more about how these rankings actually worked out and what goes into them and how maybe how can they also be improved over time? Are you adding more kind of stuff to make them more accurate?
Yeah. So I guess start by kind of as I mentioned before, what we call our World Super League, which ranks teams, club teams, across the world on the same scale. It's using a kind of Bayesian inference model. So what that basically means is it tries to learn from past data to kind of improve its future predictions. So if United lose 2-0 to a team, it might say, okay, maybe that was a blip. But then if they lose 2-0 again to another weaker team, it might say, okay, maybe they were actually weaker than we thought originally. So let's kind of
Yeah.
change. So that's all that kind of means.
Mm.
The inputs that go into this model are things like the time of the match, the final result of the game, the player state. So were you playing against 10 players or 11? Um, and also the kind of game state as well. So did you go 1-0 up very early on, or did you score one right at the end? That's quite different in terms of how good a team was playing. So some of the data that goes into it is not kind of too complex and it's quite simple. But again, the main reason for that is if we've got quite simple data, it means we can often have very wide coverage. So we can say how good is a team anywhere in the world based on this rating system. And we back tested it against actual results and also the market in terms of trying to understand how good is it at predicting how good a team is. So as I say, this rating system ranks teams globally. I think at the minute we've got Man City at the top, followed by Arsenal and Real Madrid, not too far behind. But then as the new season starts, obviously there'll be changes. So that's how that system works. And as I say, we can compare teams across different leagues, and the way we can do that is through continental competitions. So if Brighton play Man City and beat them, and then Man City play Copenhagen in the Champions League, and whatever that result is, we can then begin to get an understanding. Okay, Brighton could be this good compared to Copenhagen. Again, if you take thousands of matches where that happens, then you can begin to understand differences between leagues.
Yeah.
So that's how that works. And then we've got the same system for our national teams. So again, using the same data. The problem with national teams is there's less data. Teams don't play as many games. I think they play, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, a year, but it's a lot lower. So there's a lot more bumps in these ratings because, a national team can change a lot, even in 6 months to a year. But because these ratings are on the same scale, we can then say, okay, if Serbia are rated 750, we know that for club football, 750 is about the seventh best Premier League team. So that's how we get to those
Yeah.
translation pieces. And then we can also say, okay, if a team in another league is rated, maybe Austria is a good example where Salzburg are significantly better than other teams, or maybe in Netherlands where Ajax are much better. We can still say, although the average of the league is lower, if you sign players from these top teams, we rate them as good as maybe mid-table in the Premier League, so they can adapt from a playing level perspective quite quickly. So
Yeah.
that's how that model kind of works. And then on your second point around improvements, we've looked to incorporate XG data, kind of squad value data as well, in the European Big Five leagues. What we've tended to find actually is that it doesn't improve the predictions significantly, doesn't actually move the needle that much. So although we do use them for the European Big Five leagues, as I say, the performance improvement isn't as significant as you might expect in terms of using underlying data. And I think one of the key reasons for that is because we are using so many match results to get these ratings in the first place. So giving it slightly more information doesn't actually move the needle as much.
Yeah. Interesting. So this might be a stupid question, but I like to ask some stupid questions. So let's say a team is you've got three teams from three different countries. Let's say I don't know Denmark, Switzerland, and England.
Yeah.
Let's say one of those countries, is obviously going to be like third ranked in that. Is it ever a time where is it factored in where let's say a Danish team is better suited to playing against a Swiss team in terms of their playing styles? I'm just trying to understand. So rather than just being, Danish teams are better than Swiss teams or whatever, is it a fact that they could be technically ranked a little bit lower, but the playing style then factors in that technically they're not as worse off than maybe the model suggests? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, no, that does make sense. Yeah. So the model is more inherently just looking at kind of results and performance data. So we will say based on historical results, this team will be better, but not due to playing style differences. So that would be kind of another layer where we may add in terms of, yeah, there's differences in playing style.
Yeah. Yeah, and then in terms of then the players specifically, is there then like I want to call it like an exchange rate almost where if I score 20 goals in the Swiss League, what would that technically be worth? Is that just modeled down to okay, 20 goals in the Swiss League is equivalent to 6 in the Premier League or whatever. So is that a thing?
Yeah, that is a thing. Yeah, so we've got exchange rates for different leagues, and the way we do that is for every given team, we've got an attack and a defense rating, and then an overall.
Okay.
Um, so to get a league quality, we can take the average quality of teams, but to get the exchange rates for goals, we only look at the average rating of defenses because that's who you're facing. So we say, okay, what's the average defense quality in Saudi Arabia, and compare that to the Premier League? Okay, one goal in Saudi Arabia is equivalent to 0.2, 0.5 or something in the European Big Five leagues. I think I put a tweet on this where Fabrizio Romano was saying that Ronaldo was the highest goal scorer last year, which is in the world. Which I think we rate the Saudi league as I think one of the kind of 50th best leagues or slightly lower maybe in the world. So I kind of tried to look at if you convert all of his goals at club level, not his international ones, to European Big Five level, he had about, I think it was 24 maybe goals or something like that. So it was a lot lower. And it was unfair to say that Haaland he pipped Haaland to the most goals when actually the quality of those goals was at a very, very different level.
Yeah, because it brings me back to, I mean, I'm a Sunderland fan, so I watch a lot of Championship. So, like the Coventry, was it Gyökeres went to Portugal,
Yeah.
so obviously he's scoring a lot of goals in Portugal. Then maybe the average Portuguese team he's playing against is not as good as the average Championship team. So, he's kind of, I mean, he's still a good player, but does it mean like he's moved to an easier league and that makes him look a little bit better, and obviously his value is going to go up a hell of a lot?
Yeah. It's a good point, and I think Portuguese league is another one where perhaps there is a few teams that are significantly
Yeah.
stronger than the rest. But I think like a data science response, I suppose, to that is like maybe like a bigger sample of players is important to look at because you always get like one off or smaller case studies where someone jumps up a league that you don't expect to do as well and they do. But if you look at a larger pool of players, that probably gives you, I suppose, a better indication of how adaptable. But yeah, he's gone on to do amazing things in Portugal.
Yeah.